Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another entry of the Bookish Diaries podcast. Today, we have the incredible honor of having none other than the Abigail Owen here with us today. Abigail Owen is the number one New York Times, number one USA Today, and international best-selling author of 30 plus books that range from upper YA, epic romantasy, which is 18 plus for those of us who don't know, because I didn't know, um, to new adult modern mythic romantasy to super spicy adult paranormal romance. She loves magical worlds with plots that move up and hard, feisty heroines with sass, heroes with heart, a dash of snark, and oodles of HEAs. Other titles include Wife, Mother, Star Wars Geek, Ex Competitive Skydiver, AUDHD, Spreadsheet Lover, Jeopardy Fanatic, Organizational Guru, True Classic Movie Buff, Linguophile, Wishful World Traveler, and Chocoholic, my kind of woman. Abby currently resides in Austin, Texas with her own swoon-worthy hero. They're mostly angelic teenagers and an adorable fur baby. Really quickly, for those of us who don't know, because I have to Google this, AUDHD refers to having both autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Holy, so you have that. Apparently,
Yeah.
got some kicks out of jumping out of perfectly good airplanes for some ungodly reason. And you've written 30 plus books.
It's actually 50 when you add up. I've got two other pen names, so really I'm over 50 now.
Oh my
My
gosh.
whole head
ADHD kicks in
exploded.
hard, right? Sometimes it's a superpower.
That is beyond amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Oh,
When did you
thanks.
start writing?
So first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I was really excited to get to talk to you. Helen and I have been texting nonstop for a while
I've
now, and
been
it's
asking her
yeah,
nonstop.
no, she hasn't. She's been awesome. She's like one of my like I see her messages and I'm always like, yeah, I get to chat with him. But so I started writing when I was pretty young. I think a lot of authors share that similar story. I was at least 8 when I remember winning an award at school, and it wasn't even for fiction. It was like an essay. But then that kind of gave me the bug of like, oh, maybe I'm a good writer. But I didn't finish my first book. I probably started, I've told this story before in a couple different places. I probably started like 30 or 40 books that never got finished. And I finally finished my first one when I was about 30. And it was because Twilight came out and I didn't know that you could combine romance and fantasy. Like I read those as very separate genres, and hadn't discovered the combination. And so when I discovered that there was I was like, oh, you can put them together. This is amazing. And that's when I wrote and finished my first book finally. And then it stayed under the bed for a while, a couple years, and then I decided when my kids were 2 and 4 years old, and I was working at a tech company full time, like 60-hour weeks, and I was getting my MBA, and I thought that would be a great time to pull it out from under the bed and find an editor and self-publish that puppy and write the next book. So yeah, it's been a while. That was 2012 when the first book came out.
That is
That's
awesome.
amazing.
I don't
I
know what I
couldn't
was
imagine
thinking.
doing all of that.
Yeah. Again, it's the ADHD when you can harness it for the power of super focus, but also I discovered while I was doing my MBA that I think I would have been a much, much better student. It's not that I was a bad student, but I wasn't great in high school and for my bachelor's degree in college if I'd had a laptop because I had the ability to to go, okay, taking notes. Oh, he's still talking about the same thing. Write a book, write a book, write a book. Oh, new topic. Take notes, take notes, take notes. Okay, still describing it. I understand. Write a book, write a book, write a book. So I would bounce back and forth between those during class, and it actually helped me focus better on the lectures because in the past, just sitting there and maybe taking notes and listening to a lecture, my brain would just wander and go off down. I mean, like I would miss entire lectures, just my brain off on its own little tangent. So, being able to split that focus actually helped me focus better. It was a very strange discovery.
Oh,
I love that. So you essentially just had to learn how to harness what most people tend to look at as a disability or a disadvantage
Yeah.
and learn how to make it work for you.
Yeah, and because so I was late in life diagnosed. I was diagnosed with ADHD first when I was right about the my early 30s. The autism diagnosis didn't come until after my daughter, just the last 2 years, was diagnosed with autism. And as we were going through that process, once they finally landed on that diagnosis for her after extensive testing, they said, you know, this is genetic. It's likely that somebody in your family is on the spectrum. And we already knew the ADHD part of the spectrum, and now they're starting to think that it's all kind of one spectrum and you just have different kind of symptoms of it, or manifestations. But basically, they were like, somebody in your family, you know, probably is also autistic. And my daughter points at me and goes, oh, it's her. And I was like, yeah, fair, that tracks. So we had me tested, and um, by this point, you know, for me, it's more of it's very helpful information to have. It helps me understand much better how and why my brain does the things that it does, or why I respond in certain situations the way I do. It's kind of given me the freedom to be able to, I guess you could say it's setting boundaries. So, like, I'll just tell people, instead of forcing myself to go to a big party where I'm very uncomfortable, or say that I'll go and then not go because I just can't make myself go, I'll, you know, explain to close friends, like, please keep inviting me. I want to be part of the group, but like, I'm not comfortable in large group situations like that. You know, they're very difficult for me. And so now, instead of being offended that I don't show up, or, you know, whatever, teasing me about it, they understand. And so if I do come, they're like, oh, yeah, you're here. And if I don't, they're not offended. And like, it's given me kind of the freedom to be able to communicate those needs better, if that makes any sense.
that
Mhm.
Um,
makes
so, but also, yeah, to understand like why I just need to constantly be occupied.
Okay. I'm gonna let Megan ask any questions that she might have, but I just wanted to say I get the not wanting to go,
Oh,
and I've never actually had to say to my friends, my adult friends,
hmm.
you know, please keep inviting me. Like I want to be
Yeah.
included,
Like, this
but
isn't that I
yeah,
against you. Yeah, exactly. It's very helpful conversation to have.
yeah, I'm learning to just, get it out.
Yeah.
But like my best friend Jessica, she lives in Minnesota, and whenever I was up there working, she'd be like, "Hey, do you want to go do this? Do you want to do that?" I'm like, no, I'm good. Like I'm just tired. I'm gonna take a nap. And then she'd show up at my door and be like, "You have 5 minutes. Get ready. We're going."
Oh, you had an extrovert.
Yeah.
Yeah. My designated extroverts that get me out of my shell and take me out. Yeah.
That is who she is for me.
Yep. Yeah. I've had a few of those through my life, and I didn't realize that I needed one because I grew up in a small Texas town pretty much from the time I was 8 and on up, right? And so I didn't realize that I didn't know how to make friends or be around total strangers until I went off to college without my best friend, who had been my designated extrovert probably most of my life. And so I got to college and I was like, I don't know how to talk to people. I don't know how to meet people. Like, what is this? Yeah, like that was a shocker for me.
Megan, do you have anything before we dive into the games gods play?
Um, I guess I'll jump into the next question. I was gonna add more to that conversation, but then I was like, we might go down
Oh,
this
go over.
tangent.
You're good.
No, please do.
Plenty of time. Please do.
I was just gonna say like that I'm in the middle of like sometimes I could be like I'll have like a spurt or like a day where I'm like an extrovert.
Yep.
And then I have other days where I'm like, I just want to be left alone. I don't want
Yeah.
to socialize with people. I don't like people. Stay away from me.
Yep.
Yes.
I find that that happens more. I do the alone more the older I get. I don't know if it's just that I'm
Mhm.
much more comfortable being alone and being
Yeah.
on my own, and or if it's just that I don't know if I'm lazy. I don't know what it is, but I'm much more in the like I'd rather be alone. Except that for book events, and like that's like the weird rare exception for me where I think I enjoy talking to other readers so much that I don't mind the large crowds and the events at book events. Now, I will come home from those and crash and like not want to see another human face for a week after I do a big book event. But so like the introvert in me is still getting drained, but I'm having so much fun that it's okay. Like that's my exception to the rule.
I have a daughter that's in cheer, and that is like she does competitive cheer, and it's a huge social thing, and they're like so big with tons of people, and we will have to go, and it'll be like a 2 day weekend. So Saturday and Sunday, she'll compete both days, and I will literally be at these events for like 6 hours.
Yep.
And then for the rest of the week, I'm like,
You're like, I
everybody leave me
can't.
alone. I don't
No
want to
one here.
socialize. I don't
Yeah.
want to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's very true.
Yeah, those events drain you.
Those are hard. I think the reason the book events work for me is because I have something in common
Hmm.
and with the people and so it gives us an automatic kind of touching point versus trying to make small talk and figure out what I can and can't say to this brand new stranger and what I like what we're gonna even bond over. Um so I think that's part of it. I think it also helps maybe that I would say my observation is a good majority of readers and authors are introverted naturally. And so we're all kind of at these events in introvert space. And so we don't, I think it allows us to like interact in a way we're more comfortable with, maybe. I don't know what it is about them, but those are easier.
Yes.
I'm going to my first book event in
Yay.
LA in next month.
Okay.
And
In February?
yeah, February.
Yeah.
And I'm
Oh,
like
I think I'm going to
nervous
be there.
about it, but excited because I'm like, I get to be with book people, but then I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna do with
But
like,
they'll totally understand if you're like, I'm just going to go to my room right now.
yeah, that is true.
Yep.
Um, I guess I will jump into one of the next questions. What is your most and least favorite thing about being an author?
Ooh, gosh, those are both actually really hard questions to answer. I'll start with the least favorite. And this is still hard because I love pretty much everything about what I do. Like I love writing the book, I love edits. I actually love edits more than I love writing the book. I love what I get to do meeting other authors and having that community around me. I love the reader community. Like it's just all like it's all good things. So I would say probably my least favorite thing is just it's not having to do social media, it's the amount of time that it takes away from my ability to write. That's probably the hardest thing for me because I do a lot of my own. I have a lot of experience in graphic design, so I do like my own graphics and I put together the whole thing. Yeah, like and so to do that every day at the rate at which you're supposed to be doing it, that's hard. And now with TikTok, I am not a skit person. I suck at skits. I hate doing them. I that's no. And so I'm like, well, what do I do with this platform? I don't. I'm still like, I'm like, well, I'll try this, and then I'm like, it kind of did a thing. Like, I don't know what to do with TikTok, honestly.
I don't even use TikTok. I'm like, keep me away. I have my Instagram and that's it.
I watch it. I watch it a lot. It's how I like decompress a little bit just watching TikTok. So I know a lot of what the things that I like to watch are, and I'm like I should do those things, but half of them are skits, and I'm like, nope, I don't skit. And
I
then
have TikTok. I barely use it.
oh, I love it. I just don't. Oh, and it also takes quite a bit of effort to like film it all and then put all the text on it and then like putting that together just is it's a very time consuming. Um, and then on the favorite side of things, God, that's so hard. Um, I don't think that there's any feeling like writing the words "the end" after you've put months and months and months into a book. And you know, you still have edits, you know, it's not done and you're still going to have to work on it for more months. But like just that you got the whole story onto a page, many, many, many pages that's like the best feeling, I think, in the whole wide world.
That's very exciting. I can't even imagine that feeling. It's a
Yeah,
huge
it's a little
accomplishment.
addictive.
You won't have to imagine it for much longer, Megan, because you will
You
be
writing
there
a book?
soon.
I am,
Yay!
yeah. I'm
Congrats,
not
that's
near,
awesome.
I'm not finished. I think I have 17 chapters, but I
Okay.
haven't been able to, like the last 2 months, 3 months, I haven't been able to write it. It is so hard.
It is. It is. And you know, those that 30 or 40 books that I never finished, I would get maybe like 100 pages in or so, and then just like I just couldn't figure out where to go next or what to write next or what to do with it. And that's usually where I would get stuck. And when I finally finished that first book, part of it was, I think, finding the right genre for my brain, that my brain was like, oh, I'm so interested in this story. We'll just push past this 100-page like roadblock. But the other part was that because I was so busy, I made myself a deal to give myself a very, very small daily goal. And it was 100 words a day.
You know, that's a good goal. I should try that actually because I've just been I don't know, like my mind keep
Life
I
gets in
have
the
a little
way.
bit of ADHD. So like my
Yeah.
mind keeps wanting to change the story that I already wrote.
Yep.
And I'm like I can't go back and change it all because
You
then
can.
I'm
You can always go back and change it. Take a note. So I take a note of all the things I want to change, go back and change, and then I just keep going. Sometimes with that change already in mind. So like right now I'm editing The Things Gods Break, and half the book is missing what's in the second half that I got an idea halfway through and was like, oh, no, got to go back and change it. So I just kept a note to myself for the first half, and for the second half, it's in there. So you can do it as you go. There's no rules.
That is true. I mean, it's our book, so I mean, we get to change and do what we want with it.
Yeah. The trickiest part though, I think being an author is the squirrel effect where you're like, squirrel, shiny new thing.
Yes.
I've had that so much the past maybe week or so. I've been writing a romance book that
Hmm.
I'm going to release this year. And I keep, once I finish a chapter, I'll reread it and then
Hmm.
I'll edit anything I want to edit. But once I'm done, I'm done. I don't look at it again. And
Okay.
I go to the next chapter because if
Yep.
I keep looking back, I'm going to keep changing and I'm never going to get to the end.
Yep.
So, but I keep finding myself in the middle of writing and then I'll write a word and that one word makes me think of something else
Yeah.
and my mind is gone.
Yep.
And I start thinking about 7 chapters ahead. I think I've written the last 3 chapters already and I've only written chapters, I think 1 to 5 already.
Yep.
So I'm like, how do I have the end of the book? And I barely have the beginning of the book.
Oh, I've even
But I'm
done things
learning to just
like,
go with it.
um, like I'll get to a point in the book and I'm like, I know where I want to get to, but I don't know how I'm going to get there from where I am. So I'll go to the end and start writing backwards a scene at a time until I get to a point where I'm like, oh, now I know how they're going to connect, and then I'll connect them. So there's the nice thing about writing is don't let anybody tell you that there's one way or one right way or the only thing that you can do, blah, 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 to write a book. It is however you get the book on the page is how you get the book on the page.
I love that. I really hope people write that down, that are either aspiring or already authors. Just write that information down, tuck it away for a later date, you
Yep,
know?
I know
absolutely.
I am. I'm like, I have a bunch of new information to help me. And for
So,
both of our books, my book and the book that me and you are writing together, actually.
yes, we're writing a fantasy together, and it's
Nice.
really so interesting because we'll write and then we'll pass it to each other,
Hmm.
and we're just feeding off of what the other one does. And
Very
I
cool.
don't think either one of us has gone back and read anything yet.
No.
You're just going forward with it. That's awesome.
It's like the editor will let us know what's
Figure
happening.
it out later. Yeah. Smooth it over later. Yeah.
But on that note, you wrote a book in particular that I am beyond obsessed with. And I'm really, really mad because I was supposed to have that book that Megan is holding. in my hands and I don't have it yet.
Oh man.
I only got the email today to say that the package has shipped, so
Oh
it's
good.
coming to me. I should be able to have it probably tomorrow or the next day.
Yay.
And I was fortunate enough to get an ARC of the first book from Entangled Publishing. And I have to tell you, I could not stop reading. And when I had to adult and stop, I was the grumpiest person in the room. I was so unhappy with life. And when I wasn't reading, I was thinking about it. And I was genuinely, and still am, obsessed with this book. And I remember reading and seeing Hades' name pop up. I lost it. I love Hades so much.
Yeah.
Hades as a character is just everything. And Hades in this book is my favorite portrayal of Hades
Oh,
thus far.
thank you.
And I want to know where the story came from. What made you think of that?
Oh, it came from a couple of different places, which I find happens more and more. The more I write, the more ideas I get, but it's almost like instead of like one cohesive idea, it's like, oh, I like this and I like this and I like this, and then I pull them together kind of thing. With this one in particular, with games, I was finishing The Shadows Rule All, which is the third book in my Dominion series, and that world has a system of goddesses, which I was exploring a little bit more in book three, but was like, oh, you know what? I think I'd like to explore them even more, and maybe do like a series of prequels or something with the goddesses in particular. And then I happened in a separate idea bubble, was like, oh, I need to do something with like dangerous trials and games. But those two, and I was like, that would be amazing with the goddesses, except that it didn't fit that world that I'd already built. Like that, it just didn't fit the backstory whatsoever. And so it was like, okay, all right, shiny new idea, squirrel. Let's combine those and do a whole new series. Um, and then from there, I wasn't initially going to do Greek gods. I was going to do a whole new epic fantasy world, which Dominions is its own like fantasy world. I really enjoy world building, and so that's one of my favorite things to do. But I was basing my like this is all while I'm still writing Shadows Rule Out. Like I'm just like noodling on the side, basically. And so I was starting to put together my system of gods, and I was basing it entirely on the Greek god system with a few others thrown in. But like as I'm doing that, I was like, oh, I actually think this would work way better with the Greek gods, who I know very well. It's one of my favorite mythologies. I know the stories very well, and the various different characters, and I find the whole mythology fascinating. And so when I pitch, in the middle of all this, I happened to go to an event with my editor Liz for the book, who hadn't edited any of my previous Entangled books yet. I had a different editor. But Liz and I have known each other for a while, and we're often at events together and things. And so I've pitched her things many times before. And so we were at like a dinner with a whole bunch of people, and she happened to say, oh, I'm looking for one more Red Tower title for 2024. And I said, oh, here's a 30-second pitch, this Greek gods thing I'm having. And I didn't say Greek gods at the time. She said, this is the first time she's ever said this to me. She was like, I want to sign it, shake my hand right now. And I said, oh, okay, I haven't written anything. And she was like, yeah, well, I'm going to need that by the end of June. This was mid-April. And I was like, okay, I'm still finishing this one, but okay. And so at the end of that, I hadn't mentioned Greek gods. I just said the gods. And so I told her, I said, originally I was thinking of doing this as epic fantasy, but I actually think it would work better as Greek, but I'm happy to do either one. What do you want? And she said, oh, I want the Greek gods. Let's do that.
So that's amazing.
It's one of those, that's definitely rare, at least in my career, that's been rare. Most of my, I would say, ideas is I come up with the idea, it's already pretty well fleshed out. Sometimes first book is entirely written before it gets pitched anywhere. So like to go just straight off proposal like that was unusual for me. There's been some others that I've done on proposal, but like we've gone back and forth, like on which idea we should kind of play with. But it was definitely one of those, like, I call it my magic book, and that was the start of the magic book, where it was like I had this fun idea and it was like really solidly in my head clearly because I was playing with it while I should have been writing another book. And then Liz wants it, and it was like, oh, so yeah, magic book.
I'm just in awe. I'm just
Sometimes it's just the right book at the right time, if that makes any sense. The right
yeah.
idea that clicks with your brain at the right time and just happens to get in the front of the right person at the right time. Like it's so much of this industry, I would say like 40% of it is talent and hard work, lots of hard work. Um, and about 60% is luck and timing. Just luck and timing.
So since you kind of talked about world building,
Mm.
one of my questions actually was if you could live in one of the worlds you've created, which one would it be?
Oh,
Ooh.
that's a good question. Ah, hmm. Because they all have pros and cons. Like I think Dominions would be amazing. It's a world where each of like, they're kind of continents, but really they're just separate little countries. Um, it's a different biome. So like I'd go live in the mountains biome if I was going to be at that one. And then maybe, trip to the beach biome when I'm sick of the snow. Um, but and in that world everybody has a lot of different magical powers, but it's not everybody. Like that's more rare. So most people don't have any powers at all. I would say that's even more true in the games gods play, though, because the only people with powers are the gods. But at least that's like modern day, so you get things like plumbing and air conditioning.
That is a must. I don't know if I could live without those.
I, yeah, plumbing and air conditioning, very, very important in my life. I've decided that I was not meant to be in, yeah, any kind of post-apocalyptic world. I'm going to be screwed. Um, so, and then at the same time, like you only get close to the gods if they let you. And do you really want to be? Because sometimes that usually doesn't end up well for mortals. Versus like my dragon shifters, still in this, we still have plumbing and air conditioning, but you get to fly on the back of a dragon or be one. And so I don't know.
I do love dragons.
I love dragons.
I'm obsessed with dragons.
Yeah.
I want a dragon so bad.
Me too. Me too. Ever since, oh, what was that movie in the 80s about I think it was just called Slayer, a Dragon Slayer? About I mean, it's very 80s, about the guy who slays a dragon, but like, he's like a village boy. Um, and so in that one, the dragon is mean, but ever since then, I've been like, dragons are amazing.
I love dragons, but on the topic of dragons, you wrote, and there may be spoilers here for people who haven't read the book. So if you
Yep.
haven't read it, correct your mistake. You need to read this book. Cerberus.
Yes.
I have never wanted a three-headed dog more than I do now. What in the world made you think of giving Cerberus a different personality for each head? Because I found that absolutely fascinating.
Thanks. That one I can't take credit for. I was my daughter. I'm just starting to get Cerberus on the page, and I was like, oh, how do I work with this three heads thing? And she goes, oh, give him a different personality. And I was like, brilliant.
I love the way you wrote it. It's really easy to distinguish which
His
head is
different
speaking.
voices.
I wasn't confused at all. At no point was I like, wait, which one is this?
Oh,
Like,
good.
she tells you which one it is each time.
Yep.
And I found it just wasn't even needed. It was so, so smooth.
Yay,
I
thank you.
loved it.
He's a lot of fun. I didn't realize until I wrote Cerberus. So I had to write Cerberus because obviously he's a major character, especially
Mhm.
in the Hades mythology, right? Like he's
Yeah.
Hades' pet basically, and certainly the guardian to the gates of the underworld. And so Cerberus had to be in it, and I didn't realize until I started writing Cerberus that I write a lot of murder pets. I have in my dragons, I've got a hellhound. He's just one-headed hellhound, but his name is Darth Maul, and they call him Maul. And in Dominions, there's a devourer. Not really a pet, but he's close to murder pet style too. So like, I've decided that like I think it all goes back to I had a big over 100 pound German Shepherd who I had to have him trained extra special because I'm not a good trainer, but I paid a lot of money for him to get extra special trained because he would have taken out throats like he would. And so I think that and I owned him at a time when like financially I shouldn't have gotten a dog in the first place, so to then have to spend all this extra money on the extra training and be extra careful with him around people and that kind of thing. Um, but knowing that I couldn't give him up because most likely with his slightly violent streak, he probably would have been put down. Um, I think it gave me a special place in my heart for murder pets.
Aw.
And so, yeah, I'm also a big fan of the animal or the person who can't stand other people likes the main character trope. Like I kind of love that, especially with Cerberus, where like he might like Lyra a little more than he likes Hades, which is
Yeah,
funny to me because she's like, I stole your dog.
I laughed so hard. And Hades is basically like, you're such a traitor. What do you
Yeah,
mean?
she's like,
And
really? What?
I
Yeah,
remember reading that and I was just like, this is too funny. And
yeah.
I just lost it. And I was actually reading it in bed and I could not stop laughing. And my husband goes, all right, who am I competing with now?
That's awesome. I love it. Yep. Yeah, Cerberus is a lot of
Um,
fun.
so I have another question. Since we're talking about your books, which character in the games gods play surprised you the most as you were writing them?
Hmm. Oh, good question. Um, who surprised me the most? Probably Aphrodite. I would say, although Hades is kind of up there because I started Hades very much as your usual typical Hades morally gray god of death, right? The It was the scene where she realizes that we're butterflies to Hades. We're not butterflies to Hades, we're eternity, and we're butterflies to the rest of the gods. Something that's beautiful but here and gone too fast to kind of get attached to. But to him, all souls come to him eventually. It was that realization that really kind of solidified him in my head in terms of, yes, he's morally gray, but there's this element to him that I think a lot of people don't think of. So that actually was a surprise, and it was one of those things where I hadn't put any of the butterfly imagery in yet at all, and so I was like, oh, gotta go put back. That's one of those things. Go back and put the butterflies in, um, and so he was surprising. But Aphrodite was also surprising because I think a little bit of my own chip on the shoulder came out in her. So as a romance writer, romance tends to be the genre that people put down. They poo poo. This is porn for women. This is, whatever. It's fluff. It's brainless. It's da da da, which it is not any of those things at all. And by the way, it's 50% or more of the book market. So I'm sorry, other genres, but we're floating your asses.
We are.
So, so it is, to me, it's a very powerful genre that gets overlooked. And I think I connected through that very much with Aphrodite, who, as the goddess of love and lust, I think would encounter the same kind of prejudice. And so that I surprised me just of like oh, I never thought to connect to her in this way, but it's very much who I am and what I do.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you wrote Hades and Persephone in a way that I've never actually seen before, and I really really liked how different it was. And it was the second book I'd read in 2024 that was a Greek mythology almost retelling.
Hmm.
The first one I had read was Medromeda, and it was a retelling of the story of Medusa.
Yep.
And Medusa had been humanized in a way that I'd never seen. And I was super excited, absolutely loved the book.
Yep.
And the games gods play, when I started reading that and we got to the Persephone side of things and Hades explained, I was just in awe of how you must have come up with it. But it also made me wonder what was the hardest character for you.
Um, that actually ended up being a fairly easy transition for me, mostly because when I first landed on like okay, now we're doing Greek gods, not an epic fantasy. This is definitely a Hades. I was like, there's so many fantastic Hades and Persephone retellings out there that I was like, I don't think I want to do that again. And technically, she's his niece. bloodlines wise. And so I was like, ew, which the other retellings managed to get around in various different ways. And I was like, I just don't even want to have to think about how to get around that. And so to me, it was actually way easier to be like, you know what? Let's give them a completely different relationship and give him a new love story. And so that opened up so much for me from the romance side of things because I'm not now tied to kind of the specifics of the story that everybody knows, which was just really, really, really fun to write. I would say the trickiest part with it is that I included more of what was going on with her in the initial first draft of the book, and it's one of the things that my editor was like, let's simplify, cut, and put that in book two. And so now I'm getting to explore her character and dynamic quite a bit more in book two, which was, yeah, that was a fantastic edit. But it was one of those things where, yeah, like trying to fit it in while that book was already really long. So it was like, yeah, I can see why we need to move this.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. I'm just obsessed with this book, and it really makes me want to read literally anything that you have written.
Oh, thanks.
I said it to my husband, and we started looking up your books, and he's just like, okay, well, I can't afford you anymore, so I'm going to your parents, and they're in negotiations for either giving me back or him just being
Her book habit's too expensive. Yep. Yeah. Well, and I find that my book habit has gotten much more expensive now that the sprayed edges are such a big thing. Like I can't not,
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to have that.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. I get that.
I know you don't even have to like special order the sprayed edges anymore. Like you could just buy them, which I love, but I know that that's probably got to be expensive for the authors to do that. But now you just buy them on Amazon or even Walmart or Target. Like they all have their own
Yeah.
editions, and I kind of miss this being able to buy the special editions. And then I also feel bad for the authors because I'm like, this is gonna be so expensive to make like all of them this way, pretty much.
Yeah, and that's something I'm starting to run up against more for like book signings because my sprayed edge is through my publisher, so they need to take care of all of that. Um, so for me, it's like, okay, do I try to find like I was just debating this the other day. I've got I think 6 or 7 big book cons coming up this year, and I was like, do I offer something that would be like a special edition just for each individual con? Which book would I offer it on? Which series would I offer it on? Who would I partner with? How does that even work? Like, it's such a big, like, I don't even know how to do that. But I think my observation at big book cons, at least, is that the authors who offer a special edition specific to that con sell a ton of books. Um, so their cost gets covered, I would assume, at least for the production of the books themselves. And then you get more books into readers' hands. Now, on the flip side of that, my booksellers, like I talk to lots of like Barnes and Noble and indie booksellers and, you know, half price books and all of them. And almost all of them talk about how what they're observing now happening is that a lot of people are getting the book trophies, putting them on the shelf, and then never reading them. And so lots of extra sales, which is fantastic for everybody involved, but then like kind of no follow through, no reading, no like, so yeah, it's such an interesting space.
So I've seen a lot of people do that with books, and then I'll ask them like, "Oh, how did you like it?" Like when they post it, because they do post it. So I mean, I
Yep.
guess it's
Yeah.
advertising,
Get at least
but
one,
they'll be
yeah.
like, "I haven't read it yet," and I'm like, "That's so great." So for me, like what I do is I read them on Kindle. So either if it's free, I download it, or I buy it, and then
Yep.
if I really love the book,
Then I'll get
then
it.
I buy it. And I
Yep.
think I only have one book on my shelf that I bought just because I liked the
It was so
edges.
pretty.
And it was at Walmart and it was pretty. And so I bought it. But other than that, all of the books that I have, like, I mean, and my shelf isn't, well, I have more shelves on each side, but it's not even full. But all of
Yep.
these I've read. But I'm also a freak when it comes to reading and reading too many books in a year.
Good for you. Oh,
Um,
my reading has slowed significantly since I've been writing.
but I'm like, how can you have a book
Yeah.
as a trophy if you haven't, to
Read
me,
it?
if you haven't
It
read
makes
it?
no sense.
Yeah.
Like, I want the trophy to be something that I loved, and that's why I
Hmm.
have it on my
At
shelf.
the same time, I could see getting so like I a bunch of my book trophies that haven't been read are author friends of mine. And so to me, it's a way to support them while having this beautiful thing. And I will eventually, hopefully, read it. My TBR is out of control. Definitely want to read them all. So it's an out of control thing. The problem is that, like you, I prefer to read on my e-reader in some way, shape, or form. It's I can carry 100 books with me. It's not going to break my wrists, which I have to actually be very careful of already with carpal tunnel and everything. So like I need to be careful not to put too much strain on my hands and wrists. And I don't want to. They're so pretty. I don't want to mess up my pretty sprayed edge books, anyways. And
Yes.
so I end up buying the ebook no matter what, which is still supporting the author, by the way. It's like
It is.
I'm supporting them all the ways because I'll also
Yes.
get audiobooks and like bounce back and forth between medium.
And what I do too, if I like a book, especially with series, is that I buy the book. Like if I like really, really love it, I buy it on Kindle. I pre-order the next one if it's available to pre-order, so that way
Yep.
I don't like my
Forget.
brain will forget like that I read it, and it'll
Oh
take
yeah.
me a while. So I pre-order it so that way it automatically gets downloaded to my Kindle. But then I also buy the physical copy because I want it
Book
up
trophies.
here.
Exactly. Pretty, pretty book trophies. Yeah. So yeah, but it's definitely taking up more and more shelf space.
I actually came across a page on Instagram. Um, I can't remember what it's called. Custom Edges, I think it is.
Hmm.
And this woman does custom edges for your books, and she actually has a option on her website where you give her your Amazon wish list,
Hmm.
and she purchases a bunch of books off of your wish list, and then she sprays the edges based on what the story is. So she
Cool.
maps the edge design to whatever the story is about.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I've seen her do edges for book events,
Yep.
stuff like that. I can't remember if she did it for an author or if she did it as like a
There's a
gift
vendor
to the
there.
author.
Hmm.
I know she's done some where she was a vendor, so she had a bunch of books that she was getting rid of. And she did a huge sale last year of some of her inventory. So if it was something that you were thinking about, I would say reach out to her and find out how she works it, like how
Yep.
she does it, and if it's worth doing for you as well.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I've seen
Well,
some of just
so I've had several vendors, particularly like with my Dominion series, have done various different sprayed edges, and in fact, I've got the whole series I've got done. You can't see it there. You can see them kind of tipped right there, right there.
Mhm.
Um, those are Bookish Signs and More. She does a fantastic job. I don't know if she works with authors to do like events, groupings and that kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, I'll just add it to the gazillion things I need to get done. I'm finding this year in particular, since Games God's Play came out, that because I'm traveling so much, that even cuts into my ability to do things like, figure out custom sprayed edges for events. And write books even more, and it's something that I love doing, so I'm not gonna stop it. So I'm like, okay, I gotta find a balance somehow.
I have another like really important question. It's probably the most important question that you will be asked this year. I'm just saying, it's the first week of January. We're like 4 months into January if you really think about it. But it's probably the most important question. Are you ready?
Yes, hit me.
Okay. You're a chocoholic.
I am.
I am a chocoholic. Okay. Chocoholic to chocoholic. How much chocolate do I need to give you to get my hands on the things God's bring?
Ahead of
Is it
time.
September yet?
Um, you don't have to give me any chocolate.
How
Um,
excited are you?
so I've got to figure out what I'm doing about arcs because my publisher is handling all arcs for that whole series. I want to say that they have said at this point that they're not going to do arcs for book two. Um,
Okay,
and
so whose
so
house do I go to have a tantrum because
I know,
I'm not
but
okay?
they still send me like a handful of books, and I'm like, what? And so then I'm like, how do I determine who to distribute those to? I might have to have, I don't know, a contest or something, some way, somehow.
Are you excited? Are you more excited for the second book than you were for the first book, or is it more equal footing?
I think so with the first book, um, it was one of those like I couldn't quite believe that it was going to do as well as they were telling me it was going to do because at that point I've been doing this 12 years, loving every single step of the way, but I consider myself solidly a mid-list author where like, you know, I'll sell a couple thousand, but I'm not selling hundreds of thousands certainly. Um of my books and you know if I go to a signing at like a Barnes and Noble, like 5 or 10 people might show up who know who I am, but otherwise it's just random strangers in a bookstore who might like wander over and maybe they read my genre. um and I'd been doing that for 50 books in 12 years, and so it was hard for my brain to go, this is going to be different, even though there were
Mhm.
signs all along the way of like Liz, you know, signing it right away. That was a sign. They sold a lot of foreign rights last like October of 23. A whole bunch of foreign rights were sold that like usually that doesn't happen ahead of time, or it has never happened ahead of time for me. Let me put it that way. I don't know about the usually, but it's never happened for me. And so that seemed like a good sign, but it was like, we'll see, like, meh, you know, what if it just
Mhm.
goes huzzah, piddle. And um, so I think I was more nervous because by the time it released, there'd been a lot of money and a lot of people working on it and a lot of effort put, like even more so that into that book than any of my previous. Well, actually, I can't even say that's true because I've been with Entangled so long. Like they put so much effort into every single book. It's just amazing. But I think, especially with all the foreign also added onto it, the international rights, I was just like, please, please do well, just for all the people who have tried so hard. And so I was just more nervous. I was way more nervous than I was excited. And so at this point now, I like that book has done well, and like all those dreams have been, you know, realized, and it's just been incredible. So I think for book two, I'm just going to enjoy the ride, if that makes any sense.
That makes sense.
Definitely. Definitely. This is one series I'm just like, I'm pre-ordering every book. I have
Oh,
to. I
thank you.
do have it. I cannot allow what happened with the first one to happen with any of the others. Because my Jessica, my best friend, she actually got me the special edition of the Games Gods Play. That's what I'm waiting for right now.
Yep.
And she got it because she just got fed up of me complaining that I couldn't get it. And bless her heart, she found it and she snagged it
Good for her.
and she put it in a box
Yeah.
and she's like, it's on its way. I'm so excited.
Where are you, Helen? Do you mind saying?
I'm in Jamaica.
You're in Jamaica. Ooh, I've been to Jamaica. It's beautiful.
We can switch at any time because Megan and Kate, our other co-host who isn't with us today, the two of them have spoken about book events and conventions and those kind of things and signings at Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
And I just don't pay attention to any of them because I can't go. And I said to my husband and my friend Jessica that between this year and next year, I have to fly up for at least one of these things.
Yeah. Pick one
And
and like really go have fun
the
with it.
one I want to come up for is one of whichever one you are at for at least one of the books in this series,
Okay.
the Game God's Play series. I
Yep.
have to get a signed book, but I have to look at you when you sign it.
Ah, that would be awesome. I would love that so much.
So I am determined, and I told my husband that I was just going to annoy him until it happened.
To
So
yeah, find the event and roll with it. Well, and they're so fun. I think book events are like one of my favorite things to do just because it's all book themed fun. Which is yeah, just awesome. So, um I do find it's hard to tell because like there's medium-sized ones, there's small ones, there's huge ones, and they all have like their pros and cons that I find. So like the huge ones, obviously the pro is that you get a lot more authors, so you get to see a lot of the authors that you really want to see. Um, get even more books. That also might be a con because you're going to spend a crap ton of money on books. Um, but it also means that there's like usually more panels where the authors talk, and there's usually more like general events. But because it's so huge, it can be overwhelming, and it can be um, like you don't get any like individual time, or as much individual time, I should say, with the authors necessarily. Whereas like the smaller or medium sized ones, I get to spend a lot more time one on one with readers, and so that's also really cool. But fewer panels, fewer events, fewer other authors there to hang out with. So they all come with their pros and cons, but they're really fun, all of them. So yeah, you should definitely come.
I'm gonna
I
have
love.
to remember that, considering I think I picked for my first one a really big one.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, because I'll be there. If it's the February one I'm thinking of in LA, um,
Oh, Heather,
so
I'm so sorry.
no,
Because
no,
I'm
no.
bringing
Now
my
I'm gonna go
book
crawl under a
back.
rock now.
No, you gotta come. Come say hello to me and hang out. But that one is actually, if it's the one I'm thinking of, is one of my favorite ones that I've done. I did one with them in October, and then this is the second one I've done with them, and it was just so well run, so many fun things. Really did a good job of like getting total strangers to interact with each other.
I'm trying to remember, what is that one called? I have my app for it. Like Romantasy Book Con?
Romanticy Book Con. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Me,
that's the one
me
I'm
and
doing in
Kate,
February. Yeah.
me and Kate will be at that one. And I haven't looked
Yay!
at the full guide, so I didn't know that you were going to be there because I
I'm
haven't
gonna
looked
be
at the
there.
full author list. So now
Yeah,
I'm like,
definitely come.
I got to
Yay!
make
That's awesome.
sure I register for yours on the 12th.
Yep.
I'm gonna
Yep.
sell my husband's kidneys and try to make it.
I think it might. Actually, no, I don't think that one's sold out.
So I
So
know from what other people have posted, the cheaper tickets are sold out. I think that
Okay.
the only ones they have left are
The
the,
expensive ones.
what is it, the High Fae
Hi, Faye.
or Lords and yeah, High Fae, which is, that's what I got. That's what
so I
me,
need to sell both of his kidneys, is what you're saying to me.
Possibly, yeah. But it's worth it.
probably.
It's totally worth it.
I
It
mean, I don't think he needs two to function. He's just being dramatic. It'll be fine. Well,
is.
Maybe a spleen, a gallbladder. Nobody needs a gallbladder anyway.
So I know that we're getting close to the hour being up. Um, and hold on, I'm trying to find the question. There's one question that I thought would be a good ending for this.
All right.
Um, what is your favorite way to celebrate finishing a book?
Um, I don't know that I probably should take time to celebrate them more. Generally, what happens is I actually do type out the words "the end," um, and it's always when I finish the first draft. Which by that point I've edited it kind of like Helen does. I edit as I go, so really it's like the third or fourth draft. But the whole story is finally on the page, and usually I type out the words "the end," and then I shoot my hands in the air. And to whoever is in the house, I'm like, it's done. And they're like, okay. And so that tends to be that's it. That's my celebration. I might like take a screenshot and put it on, social media so that my readers can celebrate with me. Because I think they actually celebrate more than my family do. Who like after 5 books, they're like another one, okay. And so yeah, that's as far as I go. I should do more.
As a reader, I could say we love those posts because I like to see
absolutely.
them when it's finished. I'm like, yes, they finished it.
There's an at the end. Yeah, there's definitely a book coming someday soon.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I will see an author post a picture of them like walking on the beach or having breakfast or something, and I'm just like, yeah, but I haven't seen a
Why are
decent
you writing the book?
picture.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Okay, can we get back to writing? Stop,
Oh,
stop
you guys
it.
are gonna get a funny one from me today. I decided to do like I walk and I get work done when I go on a walk. I have a loop around my neighborhood that's like an hour and 10 minutes. And usually if I'm working on a first draft, I dictate. And so that's the good majority of my words get dictated as I go. Right now, when I'm editing, I can't, there's no way I could edit and walk. Like, there's just no way. I would fall in a ditch or get hit by a car or something. like, and I'm clumsy, so that's like, yeah, just a recipe for disaster. But I'll do other things. So, for instance, right now I'm listening to the audiobook of Games Gods Play so that I can catch any of the little details that I either forgot about or dropped or didn't pull through to make sure that like it's more seamless through both books. And I find that that's a very good way to do it because I've read the book so many times that I'm going to miss things, but listening to it is just because it's a different medium. I think I catch more things that way. So I was like, my social media post is me going, explaining that and being like, come walk with me. And then it's like me walking through the neighborhood at like 10 times the speed. And then stray dog showed up on my walk. I've never had a stray dog show up on my walk. And I was like, we've got to find your home. So if the second part of the post is me trying to find the dog's house.
That's awesome. I love dogs.
Oh, me too.
I absolutely loved having you today. And if you ever decide to take a quick pop down to Jamaica,
I'll let you know.
my house is always open. I
Oh,
will
thank you.
drive you around.
That'd be amazing. My dad's a real beach person, and so we've been to a lot of the Caribbean islands. And Jamaica was by far one of the prettiest I think I've ever visited.
I love the beaches down here.
It's
I
just
find it hard to go to beaches anywhere else.
because you're a little spoiled, yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
We growing up in Texas, I don't know if you've ever seen the Texas beaches.
I've seen pictures. I've
Oh
never been to Texas
boy,
though.
like there's no pretty, beautiful, jewel-colored turquoise waters. It's mud. It's muddy waters that you can't see through at all. And the beaches are also similarly just kind of dull. Like they're not pretty white sand beaches. Like none of that. Lots of seaweed, lots of jellyfish. And so, yeah, but like I said, my dad was a huge beach person. So one of the, other than the Texas beaches, one of the first beaches I ever went to was St. John in the Virgin Islands. And that's like the first time I ever went snorkeling was there. And then after snorkeling there, it was like, this ruined snorkeling for me for everywhere else because just nothing else compares.
I get that.
Yep.
That's like Florida. Florida's beaches I absolutely love.
They're so
Growing up
pretty.
in Maine with, I mean,
Atlantic.
we do have pretty beach, like the sand I think is pretty, but
Hmm.
we have the muddy water. Like it's not crystal
Yep.
clear water. So the closest I've been to Jamaica is Florida, and I love Florida so
It's
much.
beautiful, just the gorgeous, yeah. So, yeah, if my dad could have his druthers, he would be living in the Caribbean right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll just send him your way, Helen. I'll be like, here.
I'm totally open to it. I absolutely love living in Jamaica. The only thing I really, really hate is just not having the bookstores, not having access to being
Yeah,
able to just go book shopping whenever I want to. That's the only really sucky thing for me.
yeah, I could see that. That would be hard. At the same time, that helps you not like buy 50 books at a time.
I should say that to my husband. He should be more appreciative
You
of
should be
that.
like, this is actually curbing the habit.
That's
Oh
a good.
no.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed talking with you both. I'm sorry Kate couldn't come too.
Yes. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining. We were like,
Yeah.
when Helen told me that you were coming, I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Nervous,
She's awesome.
because I'm
She's
like, she's like the most famous person I probably talked to.
That's so still very strange for me. My husband's funny. He's like he calls himself famous adjacent now. I'm like, if anybody's famous adjacent, it's me. Like I'm still not used to that level because, like I told you, I was mid-list author, right? I'm not used to being recognized at all, and now I get recognized, which is odd. Um, and so, yeah, that's. I just enjoyed talking books, and Helen's just been so sweet and and fun to chat with. So I was very happy to come and chat.
We
I
talk
geek
about
out
it
a
all
lot.
the time. But I love it. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.
Bye.
And you. Thank
You
you.
too.